Unity of the Huachucas presents Reverend Richard Lockhart.
Deez bones, Deez dry bones.
Isn't that an awesome song?
Yes.
I love that song. So this morning I have a question for you guys. How many of you like scary movies? Or at least have in the past?
Are you turned on?
Yeah. Yeah? So, how many of you like zombie movies? Yeah? Oh. So this morning we're going to look at a story in the Old Testament. And this story actually had secular books and movies written about it, about zombies. You know, I really enjoy giving messages from the Old Testament. Don't get me wrong, I love the New Testament. I really do. It's where my faith is, it's where my beliefs come from. But the Old Testament has so much to offer, and it applies to today's world as well as it did back when it was written. If you want to know the best way to live your life, it's in the Old Testament. If you want to read a love story, it's in the Old Testament. If you like poetry and want to read a poem, it's in the Old Testament. If you want to read about battles and wars, that's in the Old Testament as well. And even if you want to read a zombie story of sort, you can find it in the Old Testament. So this morning we're going to be looking at the book of Ezekiel, the 37th chapter. A little background on the book of Ezekiel. So once again, the Israelites find themselves in bondage to a pagan leadership. And you know, last time I spoke about Gideon and how the people, the Israelites were in bondage to the Midianites. Well, once again, they're in bondage, and this time it's to the Babylonians. And like the people of Israel, it seems like whenever they become enslaved or in bondage with a country, they begin to act like the people that they're in bondage to. They begin worshiping false gods, and that's just been an ongoing thing for the people of Israel. And you know, it's the same with modern times and modern countries. We seem to get into a situation where we kind of go with the flow. I want to make this really, really clear this morning. This message is not a political statement. I would never do that. I don't believe in that. But all things from the Bible, both the Old Testament and the New Testament, can be applied to modern day. So here we go. A story that reads like a zombie movie. Ezekiel 37. This is from the New International Version, starting with verse 1. And if you want to get a real good effect, you can close your eyes while I read this to you. It's only 14 verses. And here it goes, verse 1. The hand of the Lord was on me, and he brought me out by the Spirit of the Lord, and set me in the middle of a valley. It was full of bones, and he led me back and forth among them. I saw a great many bones on the floor of this valley, and these bones were very dry. He asked me, Son of man, can these bones live? I said, Sovereign Lord, you alone know. And he said to me, prophesy to these bones and say to them, dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the Sovereign Lord said to these bones. I will breathe breath. The word breath here is ruach in Hebrew. and I'll get to that in a minute. I will make breath enter you, and you will come to life. I will attach tendons to you, and make flesh come upon you, and cover you with skin. I will put breath in you, and you will come alive. So, a little early.
I didn't get to do it again, man.
Then you will know I am Lord. So I prophesied as I was commanded. And I prophesied, and as I prophesied, there was a noise, a rattling sound. And the bones came together, bone to bone. And I looked, and tendons and flesh appeared on them, and skin covered them, but there was no breath. He said to me, prophesy to the breath. Prophesy, Son of Man, and say to it, this is what the sovereign Lord wants to say. Come, breath, from the four winds, and breathe into these slain, and they will live. So I prophesied as he commanded, and breath entered them, and they came to life, and they stood up on their feet, a vast army. And he said to me, Son of man, these bones are the people of Israel. They say, our bones are dried up. Our hope is gone. We are cut off. Therefore, prophesy to them. This is what the sovereign Lord says. My people, I am going to open your graves and bring you up from them, and I will bring you back to the land of Israel. Then you, my people, will know that I am the Lord when I open your graves and bring you up from them. I will put my spirit in you, and you will live, and I will settle you in your own land, where you will know that the Lord has spoken, and I have declared this. Wow, what a vision to have. Bones coming together, flesh coming on them. Oh, you know, we like to spiritualize this vision, and that's okay, because that's what I'm going to do this morning. That's why it's okay. But can you imagine being Ezekiel standing there, prophesying to this valley of bones, just bones everywhere, and seeing these bones come together, and everything happening as he's speaking? You know, the only thing that comes to my mind is zombies. Isn't that when you watch a zombie movie? Isn't that kind of what happens? The bones come together and the tendons come on them and all that. That's what I get. You can almost imagine, if you imagine hard enough, the eyeballs popping into these bones. Yes? I do. And you know, they stand up, and they're not just a people, they're an army. This is the people that had died and are now raised up in a new way, resurrected by the breath and the Spirit of God, ready to go to war. It's chilling, but in a great way. So here's the key, starting at verse 11. It says, these bones are the people of Israel. You know, if you do a study in the word Israel in the Bible, a lot of places, maybe the majority of places, Israel is and can be translated as the church, as us as a family of believers in God. And it says, they say our bones are dried up, our hope is gone, we are cut off. Verse 12, therefore prophesy and say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says, my people, I am going to open your graves and bring you back from them. I will bring you back to the land of Israel. You know, I can tell you that God is raising up a people from metaphorical graves. Not only non-believers, but believers as well. And as most of you know, I was both. There was a time in my life where I didn't believe in God. And then God came into my life in a mighty way. But things happened in my life, and I allowed it, that caused me to walk away from God. Thank you, God, that you didn't walk away from me. You know, God is performing surgery on people all over this world, and I know He's doing it in this country. He's opening eyes to what is going on in this country. And He's removing hearts of stone and replacing them with hearts tender for God's love. And with that new heart, He's going to put a new spirit, a new ruach. That's Hebrew. A new breath within. Ruach in Hebrew means wind. In the Old Testament, it translates to God's breath in our lungs, or spirit. To show the world that His people will not disappear, but they're going to show His image. They're going to be His ambassadors. They're going to be His representatives. The whole message of Ezekiel is that God is going to put back together, reconstitute His creation. You know, the Oxford Dictionary defines reconstitute as building up again from parts, or changing the form and organization of an institution. I think that's what God is doing. He's bringing us back together using parts, and He's changing the organization of His institution that we call the church. You know, during Ezekiel's time, there was 12 tribes of Israel, and they were scattered all over, and they were all in bondage to other rulers. And God is saying, this exile of my people will not end my kingdom or my people. He will send a shepherd. He will be the shepherd. He will regather them. He will fix the thing that caused them to rebel in the first place. And what is that thing that caused them to rebel in the first place? Hardened hearts. So here in Ezekiel, the image here is that He will raise up the dead, the rotten bones from the ground, and He will breathe into them, causing a new creation. And And this is not just the vision that Ezekiel had, but dare I say, that's the vision that we need to have in our lives. That God's going to put His church back together. God has challenged me more than one time, maybe 3, 4, or more, to bring my rotten bones of this life back into wholeness. And maybe some of you have felt that too. Maybe you've had to be coaxed along with different things to get back where you were right with God. And God had to challenge most of us more than one time to come back to the flock, to receive the blessings that He has for us, to get the pleasures and enjoyment that He wants for each one of us. So let me give you a little example of how we lose out of God's pleasures and enjoyments as believers when we're not stepping up to God's challenges. There's a part in this book, Grace Trails, by Ann Barry Jolis. And this is an awesome book. And I'm only going to tell you part of the story because I would really encourage you to get a copy of this book and read it. And this story that I'm going to tell you is a story about her. And it's called Bridge Jumper. Her and her family had vacationed every year in Martha's Vineyard. We have a couple of people that are going there. And they've been vacationing there for years and years. And there's a bridge at Martha's Vineyard that people have jumped from into the water. Except for her. There's hundreds of people. She wouldn't do it. She was afraid to jump in the water, even though hundreds and thousands of people jump safely every year. Now this particular year, she decided, by golly, I'm going to do it. In the past, she had gotten up on the edge of the bridge to jump in, but always back down. So she finally decided, this is the year. This is the year I'm going to jump off like everybody else. So she got up on the edge of the bridge, she got ready, and she kind of froze a little bit. You ever been there? You ever got to the edge of doing something that you know is going to be great, and yet that fear keeps you from doing it? Well, it took a lot of coaxing, a lot of cheering from her family and bystanders, but she finally jumped. And she describes the feeling of being scared and excited at the same time as she jumped off the bridge, falling safely, plunging into the water. And this was not the only time during that vacation or the years to come that she jumped off the bridge. So I guess I relate these two stories together like this. In the book of Ezekiel, God gave Ezekiel a vision of dry bones coming together, connecting back, forming a recreated army, alive, powerful, just by the breath of Ruach. I knew I'd mess that up. Ruach. Filling their lungs, their hearts, and their spirit. In the story of the bridge jumper, I see how fear holds us back from jumping into the water or jumping into that thing that you know is going to please So we lose out on the blessings and the fun and the fellowship that we would have with other people of like mind. God is forming, raising up a powerful army in this world, in this country, in this state, and in this town. He's taking people from all over who believe. Us here at Unity of the Huachucas, the Baptist church down the street, the Catholic church down Ramsey Road, the Cowboy church down Hereford Road, the Mennonite church down Hereford, down Ramsey Road, Molson Road. He's bringing us all together. He's taking those people that might not have all the beliefs that we believe. They might not have all the same doctrine. But you know what? They're all believers in God. And he's bringing them together, bone by bone, part by part, to win the war that is raging day by day and being conquered by believers all over this world. Let's just take a few minutes for prayer and meditation. And close your eyes, and if you feel comfortable closing your eyes, and lean back in your chairs and just take a few breaths in and let it out slowly. And just let the Spirit of God speak to you this morning. And let the vision of what God is doing with His people, for His people, just breathe in and breathe out. And let God speak to you this morning. God is creating a massive army of believers to fight the battle. Continue to breathe in and slowly release. Begin to focus your thoughts on coming back to the sanctuary. And open your eyes. Knowing that God has spoke to you this morning. So in closing this morning, I think God wants His army to be volunteers. But as in Ezekiel, he could form a draft. Remember back in the 60s, the old draft? God can do that. He can bring those bones back together to fight the battle. And you know what? Your challenge this week for all of us is to figure out, do you want to be in the group of volunteers? Or do you want to be one of the ones that are drafted? Do you want to go to war for God because you volunteered and you want to? Or do you want God to have to pull you back together? I don't know about you, but I want to be a volunteer ready to fight in God's army. You know, 2 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 14 says, if my people, that's us, who are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, I will hear from heaven and forgive their sins and heal their land. You know, if there's ever a time in this world that this land needs to be healed, this country, our United States, needs to be healed, it's now. So this week, I just want to challenge each and every one of you to think about, do I want to be drafted? Do I want to be pulled together by God? Or do I want to go before God and say, God, I want to be your volunteer. I want to fight the battle that is raging in this country as we speak. And that's your challenge. Just think about it this week. Thank you very much.